Okay, class, so today we're going to be learning about calculating sales tax and income tax. So on your notes, it says before today's class, remember back to percent calculations. How do you find a percentage of a total? So go ahead and press pause and think about that and write your response. Okay, so hopefully you remembered the proportion is over of or part over whole equals percent over 100. So if you were trying to find, let's say, 40% of 200 equals X, and it always goes over 100. Another way of solving the same problem would be to multiply the number times the percent in decimal form. So if I'm trying to find 40% of 200, I do 200 times 0.4. And you take a percent to a decimal by moving it to the left, the decimal to the left 2 places, and it becomes 0.4. Or if it's 0.4 and you need to go to a percent, it becomes 40% because you move it to the right 2 places. So that's just a review, but you're going to need to remember that for our class today. So we are going to first do some examples together, and then we're going to play a game as a class. We're going to play Miller Math Squares, so that'll be fun. Okay, so let's talk about money. So there's a lot of new terms that we need to understand with what we learned today. So take the time to pause it and fill in your new terms. So sales tax is a tax imposed by state or local governments. Income tax is money paid to the federal government based on income earned. Withholding is yearly federal income taxes based on wages or pay that employers deduct and send to the government. Interest is the amount of money charged for borrowing or using money, or the amount of money earned by saving money. Taxable income is the total amount of income minus deductions. Gross pay is a worker's pay before any amounts are deducted or taken out. And net pay is gross pay less all of the deductions, including withholding. Okay, so some quick tips. Take a look and fill in your chart on your notes. So federal withholding is money that employers deduct from wages. So that's before it even hits your bank account. Income tax, that's taxes that are due on April 15th of every year. So that's coming up for everybody. Sales tax is the percent of total cost of goods sold. So every time you go to a store and buy a shirt, it's 8.25% here in Houston and Texas. So you pay that each purchase. And then taxable income, that is your income that is taxed. Okay, so the essential question that we're going to be looking at today is how do you calculate sales tax and income tax? All right, so first we're going to start with calculating sales tax. Remember this. So what is calculated first, the tax or the subtotal, and why? I want you to press pause and write a response on your notes in number 2. All right, I'm sure you knew this, but let's just review. So the subtotal is calculated first and then the tax, because the entire amount has to be taxed, and this allows you to do only one calculation. So I put an example on here for you. So say you buy a shirt and pants, you have to tax both the shirt and the pants. So rather than doing 2 calculations, let's just do one. You find your subtotal, and then you calculate the tax. So for example, if we went to the mall, we would pay 8.25%, and 8.25, instead of setting up a proportion, I changed it to a decimal by moving the decimal 2 places to the left, and I got 0.0825. So it's $4, and I round up because I need to go to the nearest cent. So $4.13 for tax, and then I added tax to my subtotal. So for my pants and my shirt, I'll pay $54.13. Okay, so calculating sales tax, this again should just be a review. So you have two options. You could either set up a proportion. So for the first one, the Black-Eyed Susan, it's $6.25 and there's two of them. So my subtotal is $12.50 and we're saying tax is 8.5. So I can either set up the proportion, and I know it's is over of equals percent over 100. So 8.5% over 100. And what is that of $12.50? Another option is to take my subtotal, so $12.50, and multiply by tax as a decimal. So if I'm moving it to the left two places, it would be, let's see, 0.085. And I can multiply that. It doesn't matter which is on the top or the bottom. This has fewer decimal places, so I put this on the bottom this time. Okay, so let's work them out. So cross product on the left, let me get my pen again. So on the left side, 100x equals, and then I have to do 12.5 times 8.5, and I can leave off that 0, we don't need that. 5 times 5 is 25, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6, put a 0, 8 times 5 is 40, 2 times 8 is 16, plus 4 is 20, 1 times 8 is 8, plus 2 is 10, 1, 2, oh, sorry, add first, 5, 2, 6, 0, 1, 2 numbers to the right of the decimal place, and so it's 106.25. Now I divide by 100. Divide by 100 to isolate my x. So x is, I move my decimal 2 places, 1.0625. So my tax, if I round it, would be 1.06. And then my total is my subtotal, $12.50, plus 1.06. So $13.56. Would I get it the same going the other way? Yes. But we'll make sure 5 times 0, 0. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 5 is 10, 12. 2 or 5, 6. Put my 0, 0. 8 times 5 is 40. 2 times 8 is 16. Plus 4 is 20. 8, 9, 10. Add it up, 0, 5, 2, 6, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers to the right of the decimal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.0625. Same answer either way. So now I want you guys to go ahead and press pause and solve the next two. All right, so go ahead and check your work with mine. And press pause if you need to, and then we'll move on. Okay, so remember on the sales tax, we found our subtotal, we calculated tax, and we added it to our subtotal. So now we're moving on to calculating withholding, which is new, but definitely something you guys will catch on too quick. So calculate withholding. It is a worker's pay before any amounts are deducted or taken out. It's called gross pay. And then net pay is less all of your deductions. So here's our formula, and I need you guys to write it in your boxes. So net pay equals gross pay minus deductions. So this is what you would make a year minus what the government takes out, and then your net pay would be basically what goes into your bank account. Okay, so here's our example. Quinn's gross monthly pay is $2,050. Federal withholding is 11% of her gross pay. How much is deducted for federal withholding? So we know our formula is net pay equals gross pay minus withholding. In this situation, or total deductions. So her gross monthly pay, I'm going to fill that in, is $2,050, and her withholding is 11.4%. So we need to calculate that. So 11.4% of $2,050. So we can either do what is 11.4% of $2,050. That's one option. Or I'm just going to go ahead and multiply 2,050 times 11.4. I move my decimal 2 places to the left. So 0.114. So 4 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Bring down the 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. Now I have 2 zeros, and then 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. Add it all up. 0, 0, 7. 8 plus 5 is 13. 2 plus 1 is 3. 23. All right, and then 1, 2, 3 numbers to the left of the decimal. So 233.70. So that is going to be her withholding. Okay, so this 233.70 is her withholding, but we have more to deduct. So now it says her monthly pay, we know, is $2,050. Her withholding was 11.4%. We found that to be $233.70. And then part of her monthly bank statement is shown. Find her pay after all the deductions. So I know her pay is $2,050, and then this is her statement. So the withholding we calculated as $233.70, but she also has to pay Social Security and Medicare. So let's add up all of these deductions. So 3, 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Let's see, 9 plus 1 is 10, 20, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 2 is 9, 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have total deductions of $390.53. So if we look back at our equations, net pay equals gross pay minus total deductions. So that there is going to be our total deductions. So 390.53, and then I'm subtracting. So we did 20.50 minus the 390.53. Make sure we're lining up our decimals right. We have to borrow way over here. So this becomes a 10, and then a 9, and that's a 10, and then that's a 9, and this is a 10, minus 3 is 7, 9 minus 5 is 4, 9 minus 0 is 9, can't subtract 4, so that's a 1, and that's a 10, then that's a 9, and this is a 14, minus 9 is 5, 9 minus 3 is 6, and 1. So our total, our net pay is $1,659.47. So all it is finding the total of her deductions and then subtracting that from her gross monthly pay to find her net pay. Okay, so now I want you guys to think about, how do you apply federal tax deductions to find net monthly payment from gross monthly pay? So that's exactly what we just did. I want you to turn to the front page of your notes and go ahead and write your explanation now. Okay, so I wrote out what we did. So we multiplied the tax deduction times her gross pay to find her withholding, and then we added it to her other deductions, and finally we subtracted her total deductions from her gross pay to get her net pay. All right, so one more step next. You're going to have to go on to the second video for today.